Hello, how are you today? I hope everybody's having a great Sunday and that you had a great week and that you're ready to go with your projects and your gardening and your cooking and your yoga, and everybody's still staying engaged and all those things we said we were going to be so dedicated to during this quarantine. I know sometimes I'm starting to lose a little bit of interest and I just find myself sitting and gazing out the window. But today we're here to talk about notions in knitting. Now, we've talked before that all you really, should I be doing it? It's just you and me.
No, there's 10 people.
Oh, I thought it was just you and me. Sorry. Hi, Christy. Yeah, I don't know how this works. Anyway, we've talked before that the only thing you really need to knit with is yarn and needles. So needles aren't considered notions per se. They're really necessary. But I want to talk real quickly today about notions. Hey, Kathy, and the different kinds of needles that are out there. So if anybody has any questions, hopefully we can get them answered in a quick little 5-minute blurb about needles. First of all, there's 4 basic different kinds of needles. You've got your straight needle that, I don't know if you can see that, it's kind of hard against background, but that's a straight needle. You've got your circular needles, which are 2 needles that have a cord that attaches them. You've got your double pointed needles that are necessary for doing like small sleeves and cuffs of sweaters and closing up a hat and any of those small fun little figures that are getting so popular to knit. And then we have cable needles. I can't show you a cable needle because we just got done with this class that was all cable needles or all cables. So our needles are not in stock right now, but I'll talk to you about them in just a second. So in addition to those types of needles we have, each needle comes in different sizes and you have different choices of materials for your needles to be made out of. The 3 main materials are metal, wood, and acrylic. So the first thing we'll talk about is the acrylic needle. These are always pretty. I think this particular company puts out these acrylic needles and each size is a different color and they look so pretty. Acrylic needles are, some of you might think they're plastic also, so that they kind of go hand in hand. They are great needles if you are a beginning knitter because your yarn tends to stick to those needles and it's a little bit easier, to get comfortable with it. You don't have to worry about your yarn falling off of the needle. Once people get comfortable knitting, unless they're knitting with silk or some other fiber that's really slippery, they generally don't go to an acrylic needle. Then you either have people using metal or wood. And both straight needles, like we have here, and our circular needles and the double point needles come in these mediums, either metal or wood or acrylic. So first let's talk about a wooden needle. There's lots of different types of wood. There's composite, there's bamboo, there's, I'm not quite sure what these are made of, but these are my favorite wooden needles. They're Likes, and they are a composite of some sort. A wooden needle has a couple of really nice benefits. For me, I don't know. I guess I'm noise sensitive. I don't know what's going on, but I don't like the click, 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 clack. So a wooden needle, you don't really get that like you do with a metal needle. Also, a wooden needle holds the stitches a little bit better than, not as well as the acrylic, but better than metal. And I like the comfort of that. I just like wood. I feel like it's a little bit warmer. I got the vision of sitting in a ski lodge by the fire, and I just like the way they feel. And I don't like to hear the clicking. The disadvantage of wooden needles is they can break a little bit easier than metal. We have a wonderful customer in our store that is about the funniest person I've ever met. And she had a broken needle a couple of years ago that she then got into her hand, and it resulted in all kinds of problems, literally really serious problems. So you don't want to get a splinter from one of these. You don't want to sit down in a chair and get goosed by one of them. So they can break. So you have to be careful about that. Also, the tips are not that sharp. They're fine, but if you're doing some fine lace or even color work where you really want to just work with a little bit more speed, sometimes these points aren't sharp enough. And no, you cannot put these into a pencil sharpener to sharpen the point. That has been tried. We won't mention by who. It does not work. But the wooden needles are probably our best selling type of needle. The metal needles are great. These are the ones that you get a little bit more of that rhythm going, and it's click, 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 and I don't know what that is, but that drives me crazy. But the metal needles are a little bit more slippery, and they also are usually a little bit sharper. A lot of them are called sharps. So they tend to get in under your stitch a little bit faster. So if you're looking for that speed, a lot of people like metal needles. Now there's a little bit of debate on whether a metal needle versus a wooden needle will change your gauge. Hopefully everybody's familiar with gauge. So if you know that you get gauge on a size 7 wooden needle and you're switching to metal, you might want to do a new gauge swatch, because I don't know that it's happened to me before, but I have read articles where they say that a metal needle sometimes gives a little bit of a bigger gauge, a looser gauge than a wooden needle. So now that we know the different types of needles that we have and the different things that they're made of, I'm going to throw in just 2 more things about needles. This gadget right here is called a Flexi Flip. Addie makes them, and they were made as an answer to the double points. When you work with double points, you generally put your work on 4 or 5 needles to go around and around and around. With these Flexi Flips, you don't need to. They're flexible, and they almost make like a circular needle, much easier than your double points. So this was kind of a recent invention, and they're a lot of fun. People love them, but they perform the same thing as a double point would do. And then I just want to real quickly talk about interchangeable needles. We're going to look at all kinds of ways to store your needles, but interchangeable needles, there's lots and lots of different sets out there. This is where you get all the different size needles in one, usually nice case. These are particularly nice cases. And then all the different size cords so that you can attach all your needles, and you can have a 16-inch or a 24-inch or a 40-inch, a 32-inch, and it all comes in one nice, convenient little package here, instead of going out and buying a size 7 24-inch and then a size 7 32-inch. But some people like to do that. Some people like to have the interchangeables. So when people are talking about interchangeable needles, they're talking about a set that they have bought where you kind of get everything in one fell swoop, and then you don't have to worry about running out and not having the right size cord or that type of thing. Now, the next thing, we're going to start to get into notions. And our first notion that we're going to talk about is related to needles, and that is your needle gauge. These guys come in, this is a wooden one. You can get plastic ones. You can get metal ones. But they're a really handy tool. And what you have here are all these holes, different size holes, and underneath them is the size of the needle that will fit into that hole, both in the English measurement and in the metric measurement. For wooden needles, they're generally marked pretty clearly about what size they are, and you get everything in one big place, and you're like, I don't know where that size 7 is. You can usually tell quite easily on wooden needles. Metal needles are a little bit different. Different brands will put their size needle right on the needle itself, and it wears out. Other brands will put it on their cord, and it wears off. So you have all your needles in one place, and you think you have a 5, and you're not sure. This is the tool that you want to use for this. Now, this has an extra feature, which we'll talk about in just one second. But when you're using a needle gauge, your needle needs to go into the hole snugly. All right. If I go to the hole before it, the tip will go in. Oops, wait a minute. I went the wrong way. If I go to the hole before it, the tip of the needle will go in, but I can't really get the rest of the needle in. Your needle has to go in, but it has to be touching the sides and fit kind of snugly. That way, I don't know if you could see that, I was kind of looking at it. That way you'll know you have the right size needle. And we know how important it is to be knitting with the right size needle. You don't want to get hosed up on that. So if it's worn off your needle or you can't tell for some reason, straight needles are always nice because they have the sizes right at the end, and that's always very easy to use. But sometimes the rest of them we can't tell. So this is a good thing to have in your notions box. In addition, this is extra good because you've got a little gauge type thing. This is a 4x4, so you can count your stitches in 4 inches and your rows in 4 inches. If you do need something to be able to count gauge with, you know, how many stitches are in an inch or how many stitches are in 4 inches. So this one just happens to do both things in one job. So this is a really necessary notion. Some things aren't as necessary as others. Our needles are critical, and this is necessary. And that will go into our notion bag, which is the next thing that I want to talk to you about. At the shop, we find that most of our customers are bag happy. We love a bag, a box, a container, something to put something in. So there's notion pouches, there's project bags, and there's knitting bags. And all three serve a purpose. Your notion bag can be anything, as this is a smaller one. This is a little bit larger. You can see through this one. You can use a cosmetic bag. You can use a cute little pouch from Michael's. They sell by the register, but nobody's really probably going out to Michael's. I don't even know if they're open, but when they do. These are notion boxes. This is one of my favorite things. This is from Namaste, one of the nice notion and knitting container companies that we work with. I'm going to show a couple things about that. But you need something. And whatever you pick, it needs to close. Because you're going to take this notion box or bag or your toolbox, and you want to be able to move it around. You want to be able to put it in the chair next to you. You want to be able to put it in this project bag or that project bag. So you want to have it be relatively portable, and you do want it to close so that it doesn't spill all over everything. And I've already got some fun notions in here that we're going to talk about, but certainly my gauge is going to go in there also. Now, in addition to notion containers, you are going to want a project bag. Project bags, I don't know what it is. We go to these festivals, these yarn festivals, these, Vogue Knitting, wherever you go to a show. There's always crowds around the project bag booth. People love them. And those, you're not going to put everything into. You're going to put your yarn and you're going to put your needles in there. And that's how you're going to carry your project. You can put, in some cases, you can put your pattern in there, but not always. After the project bag, then you need a knit bag. And this is just an example. You can see the size. This is big, okay? We can put 2 or 3 different projects in here. We can throw our notion bag in there. It's all good to go. Nothing's going to get lost because we have it contained in smaller things, but you do need the 3 sizes, unless you want to carry it in a paper bag, which I've done. It's fine. Keep it all together. So sometimes people are a little confused about the difference between notions and projects and actual knitting bags. Now, knitting bags are a passion of mine. You can ask Kathy, the owner. She knows. You just get Peggy a knitting bag. Just get Peggy a knitting bag. This is a great one. Look how fancy this is. This isn't even a bag. This is a backpack. Can you imagine how much stuff you will get in there, and you will look so chic when you're walking down the street? This is another Namaste project. So you can go, like I said, from a paper bag that you carry your stuff in to a basket. We've got a couple people, you all know Pam. Excuse me, Pam has a beautiful woven basket. I think she got at the farmer's market that she carries her knitting in. But she has lots of things in there. So those are the 3 different types of containers that you are going to want to use. Now, before we get to the rest of the notions, we want to talk about how we're going to store these needles. Straight needles aren't so bad. I've got a couple of glass pitchers from my grandmother who has long since passed, and I have all of her needles, all of my mother's knitting needles, and I guess I don't know, maybe I bought a couple pairs, just stored in there, and they're upright, and they look lovely. They're cute. But you don't need to worry about that. You can put them in a glass, you can put them in a vase, you can put them in a drawer, because it's really easy. You just go hunting for the same 2, and then you're ready to go. These guys are a little bit more difficult to store. So we get more questions and comments from people in the shop. How do I store my circular knitting needles? And you can go from a commercially produced item to do this. You can make something up. If you are of a certain age and remember CD cases, you can get a CD case. But you really need something. That's what's nice about these interchangeable needles. They come stored with a storage facility. I used to just say, oh, just put them in the drawer and then I'll find them. What a tangled mess you get. It's don't go for that. You need something. We recommend to our customers, this is a small one, a needle case that has these pages in where you can just put your size of your needle on and then slide your needle into the pouch. Reminds you of an old CD case. This is a small one, and this is the larger one. This is, again, from this Namaste company. I'm not trying to do any, hard sales here, but if anybody is interested in a Namaste, we do special orders on these. And once we get enough orders, we send them in. And they're really reasonably priced. They're great. And this holds tons and tons of needles. Everybody loves this product. So do something. Find something. To the point where you could get a sleeve, like from Staples, that you put, a project or papers in, and put those in a notebook and slide your needles into a sleeve and store them that way. But don't just throw them in your knitting bag, throw them, in a drawer. You're going to find that you're going to be buying more needles than you need to, because you won't know if you've got it. You don't feel like looking at it, going through. Have an organizational system there. Okay, so we've talked about our different kinds of needles. We've talked about a needle gauge. We've talked about the importance of our toolbox here, or bag, and what the difference between a notions bag and a project and a knitting bag are. And now let's get down to the notions. So we asked everybody in the store what their favorite notion was, and we got some really, really interesting remarks. Mine is the knitting wine glass. Now, there is not wine in here right now because I have to drive home and so on and so forth. But I do love a knitting wine glass. I just think they're cute. When I'm knitting and I have a knitting wine glass, I figure I can't make any mistakes. I still do. But that I really enjoy. A lot of people talked about, of the people that work here, wanted to talk about stitch markers. So stitch markers are really fun. You can be shopping anywhere around the world and be basically out of money because you bought all this foreign cheese or whatever, but you can still have money to buy stitch markers, which will commemorate your trip, and you'll be able to look back on those and say, oh wow, look at this. Not all of those stitch markers are completely utilitarian, though. You want a stitch marker that fits your needle, doesn't hang all down and get caught up in the yarn and everything else. They're real pretty. There are gorgeous stitch markers, and I have a lovely collection of them, and we actually have some people that will wear stitch markers on leather cords around their neck and make them into jewelry. But I don't knit with those. I just like to have them so I can remember places. I knit with either a little circular ring, I don't know if you can see that, or what we call the light bulb stitch marker that looks, probably can't see that, you maybe can see it better from the case, looks like a light bulb. They serve 2 different purposes. Both of them are necessary. So you can get all kinds of stitch markers. You can get plastic ones, you can get triangular ones, you can get, they come in different sizes and different colors. I would encourage you, when you're getting stitch markers, that you get a stitch marker set going where you have different rings in different colors, because like I always put a green ring at the beginning of the round. So I know, oh, green means go, and here I'm going around on another round. But then I might use 2 red rings to mark where my increases are for raglan sleeves, or maybe some blue rings to mark where my cables are. It's nice to have different color rings or triangles that you know, oh, this means I'm at this point. These rings are my favorite, these little colored ones. They're actually metal rings, but they're coated in plastic. And the reason I like them is because they stick. So in the top of my notions box are all my stitch markers, that because they just stick there. And there's other products that are, you know, that have some metal to them that will allow you to stick your stitch marker in. These are made by Coco Knits, and they are fantastic. Lots of different colors. They come in 3 or 4 different sizes, a couple of different shapes. Don't use a metal ring from your husband's toolbox. It'll work, it's fine, but those are not usually rust proof. So if you're like me and it takes you a little bit of a time to complete a project, you don't want to all of a sudden have this beautiful cream colored yarn with these little rust stains every time you had a washer on there from, you know, a metal hardware store. You can use, we have a great knitter at our store who just cuts pieces of yarn, ties them in a knot, and uses those. Those tend not to slide quite as easily as a ring, but the ring is really necessary. These light bulb guys, same deal, different colors mean different things. These are removable. So you can put your stitch marker in something, you know, in an actual stitch, and then go and take it out. You don't have the rings. Once you get started on a circular knitting project, it's hard to get these out unless you're right at that right one spot. These are removable. They're also great if you drop a stitch. You can go down and stick the sharp point of the little pin part through the stitch, close it, and then it can hang there and it won't unravel anymore. So these are really useful. And I would encourage you to have all of, or both of those types of stitch markers in your toolbox. So we'll just put those in there. Actually, I'm going to have to take out the things I've already talked about. Here's like some fancy stitch markers, and they are great fun to have, and we love them. And everybody always gets excited when new stitch markers come in, but you know, they dangle down and they can get kind of caught up in your yarn and your knitting. So these are almost more decorative than useful. For me anyway. Other people probably love them, but I like the rings or the light bulbs. So that's stitch markers. After stitch markers, which a lot of people liked, we had a lot of people that wanted to talk about blocking pins. You know that when you block something, or when you knit something, you're going to get a better product if you block it. And there are different ways to block, but if you wet block and, you know, you soak something and then you not wring it out, but get the water out of it, you are going to need a conditioning solution. So that's a notion. I don't put that into my toolbox because with my luck it would open up and spill. But you should use something that kind of conditions and cleans the yarn, leaves it smelling really nice, and you don't have to worry too much about rinsing it off. So investigate your soaking solution. Mats need to be laid out. We have regular blocking mats at the shop. A lot of people use kids' foam puzzles. They perform the same service. Some people will use car mats. Not the mats you have in your car, but if you go to Walmart or someplace, they'll have like the same material of a blocking mat that it's gray, and you just put it all together to make like this big gray mat. That's what you want to lay your garment out on, and then you need to pin it in a manner that it's going to stay. So these pins right here are lethal weapons. If you put them underneath your bed and you ever have a burglar break in, you can really hurt somebody with these. Not that you don't want that to happen, obviously. But these are blocking pins that are great. These are T-pins. They come individually and you can they work great also. But you do need something to shape the garment that you have blocked or open up the lace that you have blocked. So you need some type of pin. So there's many things on the market, so you should investigate those. These are our best sellers. They're both by the same company, and one's in pretty colors, and I think they're both by the same colors. Yeah, or same company. One's white, one's in pretty colors. They do the same thing. And again, watch out. They are sharp. These will be just fine. Do not stick safety pins into your garment that you're trying to block. It'll hold it, but some of those will rust. You have to have specific pins that don't rust. Okay, then this was the big thing. Everybody wanted to talk about the highlighter tape. If you are not familiar with highlighter tape, it looks like a roll of Scotch tape. It comes in different colors. This one is blue. You can get pink, yellow, orange, green. You take a piece out and you can put it along the row that you're knitting. If you're in a chart, you can write it, put it either above or below the row, however you work better. If you're for lace or for Fair Isle, if you're working just in your pattern and you want to keep track of where you are, this highlighter tape is great. You put it down, you lift it up. You put it down, you lift it up. It's completely reusable. One of these little tape discs will last you for a long time. You can write on it. You can write directions on it. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing to have. And this I would recommend almost as necessary as your needle gauge and your stitch markers. Okay? The highlighter tape. And a lot of people aren't familiar with this. Works for everybody. Every knitter needs them. Every knitter also needs a tape measure. And you can go cute or you can go utilitarian, whatever you like, but you do need a tape measure. This is not enough. This only is for your gauge swatch, your 4 inches. If it says to knit for 17 inches, you want to knit for 17 inches. So a tape measure is absolutely a necessary notion. You need a pair of scissors in your toolbox. These are nice. They're collapsible. If you can see them in the package, I can't open the package, but they're collapsible and pull out. They actually make a decent size scissor, and it's pretty sharp. Some yarn is really easy to break. Some yarn is not easy to break at all, and you don't want to hurt your hands. Having a pair of scissors, you can get them, at any craft store. You can get the specific ones to knitting, but you do want something in your tool bag. These are really nice because once you close them up and you reach into your bag for something else, you're not going to get poked with a pair of scissors. So it's nice to have them, have a relative element of safety with the scissors. The last thing, no, not the last thing, because the last thing is the best thing. This is a container with darning needles in there. And I'm sorry that I don't have it open, but I just can't open this package. This particular company is nice because you get a case every time you need to buy a darning needle so you don't lose them. You're going to lose them. It's like socks in the dryer. But it's nice to have the case. Remember, the darning needle is the little needle with a bent end, and you use it for weeding in your ends or sewing your garment together. So that's a great thing to have, your darning needles with case in your toolbox. Now, I'm going to ask Shelly to open that for me while I talk about the next thing it does open. This is something certainly not crucial that you have. Remember, your yarn and your needles are what's crucial. But these are really nice. These come in different sizes. Every size has a color. And what it does when you're sewing something together and you want to make sure the middle of your sleeve stays on your shoulder seam, these will hold it. and they're much easier to see than pins. They're like nice big fat paper clips, and they're really nice for sewing things together. So you know where you're supposed to be, and you know how far, if you're easing a sleeve into a curved armhole, how much room you have left to work. So these are fun to have. So sorry, that's okay. This, and it comes in a package that looks like this. It's the same company. This is, I never used one of these until recently, and I stinking love it. They come with different size cords. This is a pretty long cord. They come with shorter ones. There is a blunt needle at the end, and then this foam piece at the other end. And when you're putting your stitches on a stitch holder, all you have to go through is flick your stitches right onto this needle. They all fall onto the cord, and then you insert it through the foam end, and everything stays nicely on this cord. So you don't, I mean, when my mom was knitting, she had these big long pins that she would use. A lot of people will just thread a piece of yarn through and use the yarn as a stitch holder, which is absolutely fine, except if you use a yarn that felts to the yarn you're working with, then it gets very, very difficult when you go to pull it out, especially if you've waited any time at all. Like some of our projects don't go quite as quickly as we would like them to. So I'm almost to the end. I did want to show this. This was one of our workers here at the shop. Her favorite thing. This is a black, looks like a nice makeup case. You open it up. There's two different sizes. This is a small size, but over here on this side, you got some storage. You got a pen if you're going to work on your pattern, but you can put your pattern down on, to this, and it's got a magnetic bar, and you can keep track, kind of like that highlighter tape was, you can keep track of where you are on your pattern, and it is a really nice thing to have. Those little stitch markers that I was showing you, they stick to the bar also, so magnets are magnets. It's fun, and then you don't lose anything. They're not under the couch all the time. They're stuck to something. So this is a really nice thing to have. Certainly not essential, but it is great for keeping track. That is not going to fit into our tool pouch, though. The thing that won the most votes at the shop is this. This is the handy tool. This is a small metal crochet hook. It's got a little crochet tip here at the end and a point, not a sharp point, a blunt point at this end. And it's small. And these are absolutely essential for capturing those drop stitches. You can go right in there into your stitch, grab the ladder behind the stitch and pull it right through. It's very, very easy. This is nice too. Sometimes when you're weaving in ends, you can use this to push things through. This is an investment that you are going to want to make, and it's less than $2, so it's not really going to, break the bank. But we go through a ton of these. People come in and they're like, oh, you're out of those again. Oh, you're out of those again. So see if you find these and you're not a crocheter and you think you never need a crochet hook, this is what you want to go with. The last two notions that I want to encourage you to have are a pencil, because when you're working, you always want to make sure that you can write on your pattern. Everybody takes notes on your pattern. It's always good to have that, and that will fit right into your tool bag. And the last thing that I like to have is a fun little notebook that I can keep track of. I don't know what I was doing, but I've got a note here that says this did not work. So whatever I was trying to work on, I know not to do again. Keep these. It's so much fun to pick up little notebooks here and there. They're just little fun little things to have. This would go into this particular tool bag. So if you have an urge to start branching out besides your yarn and your needles, now you have some fun little things that you can look for and and that will help you. I don't think anything here is superfluous. Some things are much more necessary than others, though. So hopefully I have given you some information about the notions that are out there. And then past this, there are tons of things, tons of products that are out there. And, if you have your own thing that you found, we'd love to hear from you. Send us a message on Facebook. We'd love to know what it is so that we can kind of feature it in the store to some of our customers that may not have even thought about that. If you've got different ways of carrying anything and anything you'd like to tell us, we love the feedback. We love to hear from you. We're getting bored with each other. We need some new information coming in. We've been talking to each other long enough here. So please, please, please respond to us. If there's anything here that you think you need or want to have more information on, again, email us. Usually during the day now, somebody is in the store pulling yarn, getting packages to get shipped out to people. And we'll certainly answer the phone if you give us a call, but we're not always here. But sending a message on Facebook is always a good idea too, because that gets checked the quickest. So that is it for this week. I went 5 minutes over. Also, if you have anything that you would like more information on that I can research for you, that you'd like to hear about, that you would like me to talk about, I would love to talk to you about it. I may not know anything, but I'll do my best. So keep in contact with us. Keep knitting. Keep sane. We're getting there. We're going to be okay. And we really appreciate you guys. We appreciate everybody that watches and gives us comments and feedback, all of your orders that have come in from our different projects, all the people that have done the classes that we've offered. Thank you so much, because we couldn't stay in business without you. So we really, really, really appreciate you. And if you think you aren't appreciated, if you think, oh, I'm just a drop in the bucket, you're not. You really have helped us. So thanks a lot and have a great week. We'll see you back here next Sunday. I don't know yet what I'm going to talk about, but I guess Shelley will surprise me with a topic and we'll have fun getting that information ready for you. So thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.